Hello and welcome to Monday's edition of The Brief. My name is Gerard Ratnam, sitting in for Jessy Chahal. Lots happening on the program with snack bites or little bites of updates coming your way in the next 24 minutes. But I'm happy to hear, and we're all happy here to hear that most of us now can go back home. A little bit more about that when we talk about Keluarga Malaysia in our crisis brief. Nordin Abdullah will be joining me shortly. I'll also be talking about the state of mental health in the country. We'll be joined by Dr. Harry Mahalingam. He joins us shortly. But in the meantime, let's get into the brief as per usual. According to the Communications and Multimedia Minister, Tan Sri Anwar Musa, work order to commence physical work for the construction of telecommunication towers under the National Digital Network Plan, or Jendela Satu, will be issued to the appointed companies this month. So that's happening very, very soon. He acknowledges the delay in the implementation of Jendela Satu, and he added that the ministry's goal is to ensure that the country's migration to 4G or 4G based services is to be done before the end of this year. Now, meanwhile, the ministry plans to upgrade internet access in Igan, Sarawak, which involves construction of 12 towers. That's good news for our friends in Sarawak. And this is an upgrade of 45 transmitter stations and construction of 2 towers using satellite broadband, which will be implemented very soon. So that's one of the first pieces of news coming out today as we make our way in the second half of the day or the later part of the afternoon. Now, according to Dr. Noraini Ahmad, IPT students nationwide will be periodically screened for COVID-19 when campuses reopen in stages, and this is beginning the 15th of October. That's not very long from now. Now, the COVID-19 saliva self-test kit will be distributed by the ministry to IPT students. She also went on to say that IPTs will not be closed but postponed to those who are tested positive for COVID-19, where they'll be placed at quarantine centers set up by the respective IPTs during the period. Meanwhile, as of the 1st of October, 83% of IPT students have been fully vaccinated, along with 90% of IPT staff members. So kudos to everyone who have been vaccinated thus far. Now we move on from students to TV dramas. How this made into the news, or how it made itself into the news, is I'm still finding it hard to understand. But apparently, Dato Hasanuddin Muhammad Yunus, PH Hululangan, is concerned that Tan Sri and Dato Sri characters in television dramas can give those titles a bad image if the characters engage in apparently immoral activities on screen. Now, he's going to raise his concerns in the Dewan Raya today and ask the Comms and Multimedia Minister about drama scripts that show with such characters engage in immoral activities and having illicit affairs or being corrupt. How will they go about dealing with this? So this is one of his concerns as we move from pandemic to endemic, and that is, of course, the concern of Dato Hasanuddin Muhammad Yunus. More on that, of course, as we receive developments on this story. Now, thousands of community internet centers nationwide will be transformed into Malaysian Family Digital Economy Centers, better known as PADI for short, as a part of an effort to boost digital economy activities among the rural population. Now, Comms and Multimedia Minister Tan Sri Anwar Musa also goes on to say that the equipment and internet access facilities would be improved at each center for the rural community to master the digital economy platform, and that's to get everyone on an even keel, so to speak. Now, he added that MCMC and the Malaysian Digital Economy Corporation, better known as MDEC, will coordinate the workflow for this initiative. So that's why something we're all hoping to see very, very soon. And to join us on a daily basis, we have our good friend Nordin Abdullah, who comes in with the crisis brief. And today, from what I understand, he wants to delve into the story of Keluarga Malaysia. Of course, the floodgates have opened. We're going to see a large exodus of people going back to their hometowns. And Nordin has been fixing this in his head for the past week as to, how do we work through this narrative and story tell Keluarga Malaysia to the masses, or to make it understandable to you and me, just so we have a grasp on what's happening. We have a finger on the pulse at all times as we move along with the pandemic. Nordin, good to see you again, my friend. And It's first time I'm having a show with you after a very long time.
It's always good to be on the show with you, Gerard. You know, we always call you the master, and there's a reason for that. You're the guy who knows what's going on. You know, and we're happy that we can be here on today's show, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak about Keluarga Malaysia and from a crisis perspective. And one of the things that we've seen is the concept of crisis management and dealing with challenges. Actually, one of the key things is being empathetic. And empathetic is this idea of empathy and this idea of being part of the same problem. Everyone talks about, well, we're in the same challenge, we're in the same boat. You know, maybe we're in the same storm, but we're not in the same boat. So one of the things that this idea of Keluarga Malaysia is, it's an inclusive idea. And one of the things in crisis management we look at is how do we design a community-based approach to a crisis? And in this pandemic moving to endemic is an example of why we need to have a community-based approach, or even in this level, a family-based approach across the nation, is so that everyone is part of the solution. Nobody is left behind. And we recognize the challenges of all the critical community groups that are hit hardest by the pandemic. And I think this is one of the things that the government has really looked to achieve with the current rollout, especially moving forward to what's going to come up with the budget in the next month or so, as well as what's coming ahead in terms of now we're allowed to travel across borders. And I think one of the biggest recipients or the beneficiaries of being able to travel across borders are those families that have been separated by COVID-19. So in terms of dealing with a crisis, dealing with those family level crises, is now people are allowed to travel. So that crisis point has now been removed from the equation, because fathers are able to see their children, mothers are able to see their children, and husbands and wives are able to see each other. So this, I think, is one key important step in the recovery phase and the National Recovery Plan that the Prime Minister and his entire cabinet is rolling out in this current phase of the dealing with COVID-19.
Right. You know, I mean, so I know on a daily basis, you tell your story and then you leave. But I need to ask you a question at this juncture, simply because a lot of us take this Keluarga Malaysia thing, you know, or a lot of us who are on social media and who hang around the nice spots in urban parts say, you know, how can something like this affect all of Malaysia? You know, how can we send a message out that we are a family? Is it going to work? You know, a lot of skepticism with regards to this with some quarters, and you know what I'm talking about here. Your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the fact that there's skepticism is important, because skepticism gives you an idea of where the crisis lies on that individual level. So when someone puts their criticism on social media or in the media sphere, you're able to now understand that problem and you're able to address that problem. And when you start to address that problem and deal with it from a family perspective, meaning that I'm listening to you. In a family scenario, you're listening to family members. That is important. And dealing in a crisis, especially one that is this large, listening is the most important thing that we can do right now. So it's actually a good thing that there is criticism, and the current government is allowing for quite a lot of discussion and quite a lot of debate around this concept, which is actually a good thing, because it allows for people to air their grievances. And once you're able to do that, you're able to address the crisis point. And I think this is one of the
I have to stop you here now. You know, we know that borders have opened up today, and the large exodus will begin towards the end of the weekend. I'm sure it's going to happen in stages. And it's a smart move to announce it yesterday, because everyone just can't pack up and leave like we usually would. Now the bigger problem here is that we're also dealing, you know, we were dealing with a mental health problem. Do you think, you know, opening up borders and getting people to go back and see their loved ones, is it going to change whatever we have as mental health problems at this point in Malaysia? A lot of it is people being cooped up or feeling cooped up, or at least that's the way I see it through the looking glass.
I very much agree with you, Gerard. And one of the things that humans are social creatures. So the inability to, it's not so much the travel part, it's meeting family members in different parts of the country. And I think this is why this is such an important step for mental health. There's been a huge amounts of anguish developed because, and in the name of managing the pandemic and managing the outbreaks, that we've contained the crisis at the state levels and in some cases MCO levels where families have been separated. So now from a mental health perspective, we will see an improvement across the board in Malaysia in terms of mental health. Of course, there's still a lot to deal with unpacking 2 years of lockdowns on and off, but we are going to see an improvement in mental health. So I suspect that things like suicide rates and other rates of anxiety and depression will drop in the coming weeks and months. So that I see as a direct response to this crisis.
Right. I'm going to be bringing on my next guest soon, but very quickly, I'm just going to read out this piece of news. Health Minister Khairy Jamaluddin has been acknowledged for his role in spreading awareness of mental health among Malaysians by Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, the WHO director. Now, the WHO Director General thanked Khairy for his leadership in encouraging Malaysians to talk about mental health on Twitter today. Your comments before I bring in Dr. Harry Mahalingam.
Yes, and it's wonderful that this has been all the way to the top in the sense of dealing with the pandemic, the World Health Organization. But again, we go back to Keluarga Malaysia. It's easy to speak to family members in some cases. So mental health, there's a huge stigma attached to it. So addressing it and putting it out in the open is the first step. Having the mental health professionals now, and this is one thing I think that, and I'm sure and I hope that the next budget will address, is putting more budget into mental health, especially through the Ministry of Health.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. I'm going to hold you for a bit. I've got a question to ask you. Can we quickly bring up Dr. Harry Mahalingam, just so we get acquainted? So before I let you go, Nordin, there is going to be a huge exodus starting from today. Are you planning on leaving the city limits for the week ahead? Or you have plans?
Not in the week ahead. Yeah, no, not in the week ahead. But I hope by the next month or so that we'll be able to plan a trip. Of course, we have also family members, in different parts of the country that we haven't seen for 2 years. I like to take this approach of the Ramadan Buka Puasa buffet line. I like to go after everyone has rushed to get their Buka Puasa meal and just start with a small date, as it were. So this is the kind of analogy I like to use. So plan your trips well, plan it safely, and when we use the word exodus, it's a dangerous thing. So managed travel is important.
Thank you very much. Anyway, Nordin, thank you for that. You have a great day ahead, my friend. And I'd like to welcome in Dr. Harry Mahalingam. Dr. Harry, we were very earlier on, we were talking about YBKJ's tweet and how the WHO Director General has retweeted him, celebrating what he has done, which is to talk about mental health in this country. Now, with regards to mental health in the country, as a public health specialist, what's the general consensus on mental health in Malaysia? Is it gaining more of an awareness since the pandemic started? Where's this conversation going? Dr. Harry?
So over these past 2 years, we have noticed that mental health issues have been is on the rise, and it's and people are starting to get aware about it. And today, I'm noticing that a much more awareness is being pushed out, rolled out there. But it is still a long way to go. We are looking at very high rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide that is happening today compared to what we saw many years back. And like how Mr. Nordin mentioned that with this opening of all the states and the borders, we're hoping to look at a good reduction in depression and anxiety as people start to unite with their families and so on. But on a perspective of NGOs and who are out there dealing with the community, we noticed that a lot still needs to be done. A lot of awareness needs to be done. and identification of mental health problems and how to help individuals who are facing mental health issues, that needs to be tackled. And the more we get to identify and the more we get to speak to people who are suffering from mental health disorders or mental health illnesses, the more we get to tackle from there.
Right. I'm picking up on keywords here. The more we can tackle this, identify, so on and so forth. Just for the benefit of the viewer, we're speaking to Dr. Harish Dinesh Mahalingam. He's a public health and occupational health physician, the chief executive officer, very important man in SB Care Group, and he's also the medical chairman for the Federation of Reproductive Health Associations of Malaysia. But I guess your area of interest is mental health at this point, and now, you were talking about it being tackled, identifying the problems. So, if we were to zoom in on these problems, what small steps, little steps can we take at this point in order to ensure that we're moving forward? And here's a double barrel for you. I know you work with NGOs. What are NGOs telling you? Because they're on the ground doing a lot of work with people as we speak.
Yeah. So what we hear, the cries of the NGOs are, we need help. We need people to train us to identify and to provide mental health first aid. And this is something very important because this can be a very strong prevention to suicides and worse situations. And because of NGOs have lack of funding and lack of support when it comes to mental health issues, when they all they need is help. And if we can get more trained personnel, more training to be done, more training for people on the ground who are seeing the community, more we can identify and more we are able to channel to the right people to help solve mental health issues among the community. That's actually very, very important.
Right. If someone came up to you and told you, Dr. Harry, I've got problems with mental health, my family, I know a couple of my family members look like they're suffering from anxiety or they have problems with depression, or at least that's what I see. What would your advice be to someone who comes up to you and says that?
Bring them forward. They need to come, bring them forward, see your local GP or see someone who is professional in the field to actually speak to them, understand what is actually happening, why they feel such a way, and at what mode of treatment can we go to actually solve their problems, whether it is going to be just counseling or whether it's going to involve treatment, oral treatment. It doesn't matter, but bringing them forward is the most important thing. Identification, bring them forward to get help.
Right.
That's the most important.
Right. So I'm going to get a little personal now. I know it's a news bulletin, and you have to keep everything neutral. But I'm one person who likes to push for mental health awareness, and I say that because I have suffered from mental health problems. Now, we keep going around giving bad advice sometimes. When you have a group of friends talking, and someone tells you, you tell someone, "Oh, the doctor gave me something for my depression," and your friend goes on to say, "Oh, you shouldn't be taking these pills. You should be off the pills, and you should be on some kind of exercise regime or meditating." While that is good, I don't think this is sound advice. What is your take on this, and how would you advise me and the viewer to move forward with this?
Okay, so giving such advice is a very common thing that we notice that is happening, but people need to be aware and they need to understand mental health issues. People are on medication for a reason. That means they have gone through the counseling, they have gone through the assessments, and there's a reason why they are put on medication to actually control their depression or control their anxiety. And meditation, and it's good. It's not that it's not good, it's good, but it will not solve their problem. And awareness is, that's a problem. Awareness is very much needed to make others or make people understand what mental health is all about and how severe mental health can go and how to manage them. And by strong awareness out in the public, people get to understand that, okay, If you say you're having depression, or if you say you're having anxiety, or I need to get you to seek some professional help, and not just tell you to, go on meditation or stuff like that.
Right. In closing, before I let you go, your thoughts with regards to Mental Health Awareness Day. Yesterday was International Mental Health Day. What is your message to Malaysia and to the rest of the world with regards to mental health and its awareness?
Yeah. So yesterday was World Mental Health Day, and I hope that the awareness in the country will be rampant, and more people will understand about mental health, and this will help to reduce mental health issues that are happening in the country, including the suicide rates that has gone up in the past 2 years. We want all of them to reduce, and I think the awareness is the most important. I hope the authorities, KKM, I think KJ has put forward very good statements, and I think
Right.
he should be able to bring that forward and do better for our country.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harry Mahalingam, there joining us to observe and celebrate Mental Health Awareness Day or International Mental Health Day. Thank you very much, Dr. Harry, for that. Thank you for staying with us right here on The Brief. We move on to more news briefs. Well, according to KJ, the government's decision to lift interstate travel restrictions for fully vaccinated individuals is a recognition of the great efforts put out by frontliners. Now, the responsibility now lies in the hands of you and I, and we have to comply with all SOPs. Just so you know, we have now hit the 90% mark for jabs in arms, which has enabled interstate travel commencing today. All the best, Malaysia. I know everyone's excited. Now, moving along, still with interstate travel, and this is from the IGP. Following the PM's announcement, the PDRM will conduct random inspections in focus areas and end roadblocks at state borders, so you don't have to worry about the bottlenecks when you go into the various states. However, roadblocks will continue in areas under the Enhanced Movement Control Order, or EMCO, and where police presence is needed desperately. Now, the cops have also advised the public not to take the relaxation lightly. Now, over to East Malaysia, Sarawak has agreed in reopening its borders after the PM's announcement, but travelers need to apply for entry. The State Disaster Management Committee, or SDMC Secretariat, has this to say: Sarawak will open its borders for Malaysians from other states without any need for a police permit starting today. This only applies to fully vaccinated individuals. Now, if you're looking to visit Sarawak, be sure to submit your applications and proof of vaccination online through the Enter Sarawak platform. Now, back to the Minister of Communications. According to Minister of Comms and Multimedia, Tan Sri Anwar Musa, the ministry is targeting to have 4G broadband network coverage in 97% of the country by the end of 2022. Good news for you and me, more streaming, that is. Now, to achieve this, the government has allocated almost 4 billion ringgit for infrastructure development through the National Digital Network, or Jendela initiative. So that's something very, very exciting. In the meantime, according to the Fire and Rescue Department, or Bomba Director General, some 12,000 firemen nationwide are on standby for the impending, and listen to this very carefully, northeast monsoon season, with 6 states expected to experience torrential downpour, which poses a risk of flooding. Now, the department has enhanced its logistic capabilities and manpower to effectively respond to floods and to assist public in the event of a disaster. So that's a little something for you with our news briefs. Also, remember that the department plans to focus on 6 states. They are Kelantan, Terengganu, Pahang, Johor, Sabah, and Sarawak. From there, we take a look at what's happening internationally. Lots of news happening internationally. Of course, the biggest one was Facebook, but we'll get into that at some other point. Now, Sydney's cafes, gyms, restaurants welcome back fully vaccinated customers today after nearly 4 months of lockdown, as Australians look to begin living with the pandemic. Now, with the vaccine rollout gaining momentum, Australia is planning a staggered return to normalcy, letting fully vaccinated residents enter and leave the country freely starting November, and even earlier in New South Wales. Now, Australia shut its international borders in 2020, which helped keep cases relatively low, with 130,000 cases and only 1,448 deaths. Now, from there, we move on to Russia. The death toll from a mass poisoning linked to illegal alcohol in southwest Russia rose to 34 as of yesterday. While we're talking about this, there's been a series of this happening, or there's been a history to this. Now, local authorities, also said that 24 more people are still being treated in hospital. Now, mass cases of alcohol poisonings have shocked the country in the past. Now, back in 2016, 77 people died in Siberia from drinking bath oil laced with methylated spirit in search of alcoholic highs. Now, Russians have long had a reputation as some of the world's heaviest drinkers, but good news is that has declined. This has led to a rapid rise in life expectancy after the declining of the number of drinkers within that country. Well, what is news without Facebook? According to a Facebook executive, the company will introduce new measures on its apps to prompt teens away from harmful content. Why is this happening? Now, US lawmakers are currently scrutinizing how Facebook and Instagram can affect young people's mental health. So Nick Clegg, Facebook's vice president of global affairs, also expressed openness to the idea of letting regulators have the Facebook algorithms. I hope they're giving out the right algorithms when they pass it out to the authorities. Now, very quickly, let's take a look at what's trending on Twitter. Uber Cup 2020 or hashtag Uber Cup 2020. Fellow Malaysians have been showing their love and support towards the Malaysian Uber Cup team, and in particular 17-year-old Siti Nursuhaini, who for her debut in a major tournament during the BWF Uber Cup 2020 tie against China yesterday. Also, Palestine retweets and tweets regarding the Free Palestine movement are widely spreading on Twitter. When we get more information, we'll give you the 411 on that. And SOPs is another tweet that's trending. With the interstate borders reopening, everyone's talking about SOPs once again. I guess that's bringing us to the close of the show. Of course, remember that the floodgates have been open and most of us can make our way home, but please listen to Plus and all the advisories that come out from various highway concessions and concessionaires, and of course from the authorities. When we talk about the authorities, we're talking about the police. Listen to them all the time, because we want to keep safe as we do this. On that note, this is the brief coming to an end on a Monday afternoon. I'm Jared Ratnam, signing out. Have a fantastic day ahead.